Salve Maria to everyone, and thank you very much for having invited me to this supporters conference of the American TFP. As you know, this conference should have been given personally by me there with you. Unfortunately, the COVID-related restrictions made the trip impossible, or in any case, so difficult that we decided that I would make this video. Notwithstanding all this, I may be going to the United States, maybe in January of next year, where I will have the pleasure of meeting, if not all, at least some of you. I greet Mr. Raymond Drake, President of the American TFP, Mr. John Harvard, Vice President of the American TFP, and I go straight into the subject because it's a little bit long. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be speaking about the angels and concretely about the action of the angels, or the part the angels have in contemporary battle between the revolution and the counter-revolution. For this, I will be following very closely a book that was recently published in Italian, The Angelic Militia, The Angels in the Panorama of the Church and of Society Today. This is a book done with parts, with texts from Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira's series called MNF. MNF is short for Manifesto. Where he dealt with so many issues, so many themes, so many beautiful subjects, among which the angels. Let's hope that this book is translated into English. We're already making plans for that. So we might be having a presentation, I hope that this time personally, maybe sometime next year. Anyway, I'll go straight into the subject. What are the angels? Or better said, who are the angels? The angels are spiritual beings between men and God. They are purely spiritual because they don't have any matter as we do, but they're not spiritual in the sense that God is spiritual because he is absolute spirit. Now, we can prove the existence of the angels in several ways. First of all, the witness of Holy Scriptures. Holy Scriptures are full of references to angels, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. They even give us the name of three angels: Archangel Saint Gabriel, Saint Raphael, and Saint Michael. Our Lord Jesus Christ several times refers to the angels. He even refers to the fall of Satan, the fall of Lucifer from heaven into hell. So, from the witness of Holy Scriptures, we can easily deduce, we can easily cue the existence of angels. Then there's a whole series of intellectual, philosophical reasonings that prove the existence of angels. I would not go into any detail. This book goes into much detail, but most are taken from that fantastic part of the Summa Theologica of St. Thomas Aquinas, titled De Angelis, of the angels. Indeed, Professor Plinio said that maybe the part he most liked of the Summa Theologica was the part about the angels. I'll just give you one of the several philosophical demonstrations St. Thomas gives for the existence of angels. You know, there's a philosophical principle. In Latin, you say it like this: agens agit simile sibi. An agent acts according to himself. An intelligent person says intelligent things. A stupid person says stupid things. Very familiarly said. God is purely spiritual, so creation would not have been totally complete or totally perfect if it didn't create beings that were more or most similar to him in that which he has of essential, that is his spiritual being. Therefore, he had to create spiritual beings, and those spiritual beings are the angels. Then there's a whole series of demonstrations of the existence of angels, which come from the contemplation of the order of the universe. You see, the universe is hierarchical. We could spend hours and hours just speaking of hierarchy in the universe. But just to be very quick, we have minerals which have existence. Then we have plants, we have life. It's a vegetal life. It's called a principium vitae, a principle of life, which is simply vegetal. Then we have the animals who, apart from existence, apart from vegetative life, I said vegetal, excuse me, it's vegetative life. They also have instinctive life. They have instincts. Then we have men who have existence, vegetative life, instinctive life, and intellectual and spiritual life. And then there will be a vacuum, there will be an abyss all the way up to God. This cannot be true because natura non facit saltus. Nature doesn't give leaps. Nature is perfectly proportional. So, in order that the order and harmony of the universe be complete, we have to have beings between man and God, and these are the angels. You will say, well, but Our Lady is superior to the angels. Our Lady is the queen of the angels. The angels obey Our Lady. It's true, but she is superior to the angels in grace or through grace, not through her nature. Our Lady's nature is simply human, is perfectly human, without original sin. She was conceived in an immaculate way. So it is the perfection of the human nature, but it's a human nature. She's superior to the angels through grace. Now, having said that, I will go, as you see, every single point that I mentioned could be developed in hours and hours of meeting. But anyway, having said this, I will go straight into the subject that was given to me. The angels are intermediaries between God and man. The angels are in between God and man. The very word angel comes from Greek angelos, which literally means messenger. The angels are messengers of God. And I recall, if you want to conceive in an image the role of the angels in God's plans, you can see the image of Jacob's ladder. Remember, I have it here, Genesis chapter 28, verses 11 onwards. And behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And this is the image of Jacob's ladder. It's a ladder that comes from earth, that goes from earth to heaven, and angels go up and down, up and down, up and down. What does this mean? It means that angels link God with man. They take up towards God or to God things that we do or give them, and they bring back from God to us things that God gives us. For example, grace. This is a point that hasn't been very much studied by theology, and this is one of the points Dr. Plinio wanted to make up when he gave this series of meetings about the angels. Angels are intermediaries of grace. Grace is God. Grace is a created participation in the uncreated life of God. It goes to Our Lady, who is the universal mediatrix of all graces. But then they come to us through the angels. The angels are intermediaries of grace for us. Now, what does this mean? What concretely does this mean? This is the subject, this is the theme that I would try to develop in this meeting. One first point is the notion of a guardian angel. The fact that every person, even the non-baptized, has a guardian angel is not a dogma. It's not part of the dogmatic magisterium of the church, but Saint Jerome, already in the 4th century, he said, it's a truth that has been believed by the church since the earliest times. So the church has always believed the existence of guardian angels. And our Lord Jesus Christ himself, when he said, let the children come to me, because their guardian angels are before my heavenly Father. See, he's speaking about the guardian angels. So Dr. Plinio raises a question. Are guardian angels given randomly? That is, we are generated by our parents, because our parents don't create us, they generate us. We are generated by our parents. At a certain point, we receive a soul, and at a certain point, that person receives a guardian angel. Does God go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and then chooses randomly an angel? Absolutely not. God chooses a specific angel for specific person. What does that mean? It means that from all eternity, God had thought of that angel in relation to that person, and vice versa. He from all eternity, he looked at that person in relation to that angel. When he created the angel, he was thinking about the person, and when he created the person, he was thinking about the angel. Dr. Plinio raises coins the term complementarity as applied to this situation. The guardian angel and the guarded person are complementary realities. They don't exist without each other. What does this mean? It means that our guardian angel is an angelical version, so to speak, of me. My guardian angel is me, myself, in an angelic level, in an angelic nature. He's the perfect archetype, the perfect model of what I should be. He has purity as I should have, perfect purity. He has humbleness as I should have, etc., etc., etc. My guardian angel is the angelic version of myself. So, between my guardian angel and me, there are very deep relations. Not only the guardian angel keeps me from evil, guardian angel, he guards me. That is a very partial way of conceiving the role of the guardian angels. Theology says that angels illuminate, purify, and perfect. First role of the guardian angel is to illuminate. Second role is to purify. And third role is to perfect. Or, if we follow the prayer that we normally do, illuminate, guard, rule, and guide. This illumination by the angel reaches its apex, and this is the link to the next subject that I will deal with. This illumination reaches its apex when I open myself totally to the light coming from my guardian angel. And when I open myself totally to the light coming from my guardian angel in his turn assumes me into him so much that we enter into a relationship that it's not essential. We don't become angels. That will be absurd. That will be pantheistic. We don't become angels. But we enter into a relation which is much more than our simple accidents. We are assumed by our guardian angel. And this aspect of assumption or assuming is a very large part of this book. It's a very large part of Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira's doctrine about angels. Now, what happens with a person when he is, or he or she, I'm saying he, but of course it's he or she, is assumed by an angel? And I translated some parts, so excuse me, at this point I have to read. There is a principle of the order of the universe, says Dr. Plinio. When a being of a certain species reaches the apex of that species, it takes on certain characteristics of the higher species. So when an individual of one species reaches the apex of that species, it takes on certain characteristics of the higher species. For example, he says, there are plants that are so superior that they even have a kind of sensitivity and movement similar to those of the animals. This is the case of plants that eat insects. As there are certain animals, for example, a very well-trained dog, which have something human about them. Thus, when man reaches the apex of himself, remember this, when man reaches the apex of himself, without losing his nature, he already has something angelic. At the apex of the human soul, there is a sort of handle through which the person can hook himself to the upper plane, that is the angelic one, projecting himself upwards. By doing so, we are incorporated into the angelic world, into the world of absolutes represented by the angels, and through them in the absolute of God. In turn, the angelized person becomes a symbol, a reflection of the Holy Church, of the angels, of Our Lady, ultimately of God our Lord, from whom everything comes and towards whom everything tends. The saint, for example, is an angelized person, not in the sense that he lost his nature, that will be monstrous, but in the sense that by an action of grace, he has been raised to the level of being able to co-reign, we will speak about that later, with the angels. The angelization of man, the angelization of a person. Why is this angelization so important? With this, I go to the second part of my meeting. Thus, the angelization of a person is the most intimate relation he or she can have with his guardian angel. Now, what use or what importance does this angelization have, concretely speaking, in the war or in the clash between revolution and counter-revolution? I'll leave that for a next point. Right now, I would like to deal with a very essential point that we have to study and we have to fully understand. Angelic chivalry. Well, you see, What happened in heaven? God created heaven, God created the angels in perfection. The angels were perfectly happy, they were perfectly saintly, they were perfectly ordered, they were perfectly harmonious, perfect everything. Peace reigned in heaven. Angels continuously got to know God better, to praise Him, to love Him, to serve Him, etc. And everything in heaven was nothing else but praise, love, light, and harmony. At a certain point, the highest angel, Lucifer means the bearer of light, Luciferos, the bearer of light. Lucifer was not satisfied with being the highest angel, and as prophet Isaiah says, he wanted to be like God, and he rebelled. He rebelled with this satanic cry, this satanic motto, non serviam, I shall not serve. That is, I rebel against the order you wanted to create, or the order you actually created. Non serviam, I shall not serve. Now, God could have crushed Lucifer, Satan, with just an act of his will, instantly. He could have crushed him, he could have destroyed him, he could have done anything with Lucifer. He didn't do it himself. He suscitated another angel, Saint Michael, to fight against Lucifer. And Saint Michael gave his cry of war, his war cry, Quis ut Deus, who is like God? And this is what Michael means, who is like God. And as the Bible, the Apocalypse says, and there was a great battle fought in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against Lucifer and his angels until there was no more place for them in heaven, and they were precipitated into hell, etc., etc. So the first battle of history was fought in heaven. And it's the most perfect battle, the most beautiful battle, the greatest battle in history was fought in heaven. So, dear pacifists, those who say that wars are always wrong, dear pacifists, realize, read the Bible, the first battle was fought in heaven. Now, does this battle continue or did it end? Of course it continues. Why? Because the devil and his angels, those who were precipitated in hell, have not forgotten, have not relinquished the idea of destroying any reflection of God in creation. So when God created Adam and Eve, when he created the material universe, when he created our world, the devil immediately began to conspire in order to break down this part of the order of the universe. And that's original sin. And remember Genesis, in 2 different chapters of the Genesis, this fact is narrated. God punishes the serpent, God punishes Adam, God punishes Eve. And right after having punished all 3 of the actors, so to speak, of original sin, he says, I shall put enmities between you, the serpent, and the woman, Eve. Between your descendants, your race, and the woman's descendants, the woman's race. She will crush your head. So you see, history is the essence of history is this clash between the race of the serpent, the race of the snake, what Saint Louis Mary of Montfort calls the sons of the devil, the sons of Belial, and the sons of the woman, the sons of Our Lady. Therefore, all the fight between good and evil in the world are but a continuation of the great battle that was fought in heaven. Now, I raise the question, Do the angels have a role in this battle? And of course they have. Therefore, we have to speak today of chivalry. We have to speak today of war against evil, which in this concrete case is war against revolution. And this war is waged by men and by angels. This is a concept of the clash between the revolution and the counter-revolution that we have to put into our minds. This clash is done by men and by angels. Writes Dr. Plinio, the members of the race of the Virgin continue here on earth the battle waged by Saint Michael in heaven. What leads one pole to dominate the other is not so much the outcome of a controversy or a sporadic clash, but the force of impact they have, which depends on the spiritual union with the respective vertex. That is, in the measure that we are united to Our Lady, we will have the force de frappe, the strength of the clash against the revolution. The angels on one hand, the demons on the other. In our day, this struggle takes place between the revolution and the counter-revolution. This is the deepest meaning of the clash between revolution and counter-revolution. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to realize this, that we're not involved in just any war. It can even be a legitimate war. You know that there are just wars. For example, if my country is attacked, my country has the right to defend itself, and that will be a just war. We're not involved in just this kind of war. We are involved in a war that is a repercussion, is a reverberation, and a continuation of the war waged by the angels. The deepest meaning of history consists in accompanying this struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness. There is no aspect of the confrontation between the revolution and the counter-revolution in which angels or demons are not involved. I will repeat this. There is no aspect of the confrontation between the revolution and the counter-revolution in which angels or demons are not involved. This requires of the counter-revolutionaries, that is us, a special ability, I would say a special feeling, to discern the action of demons and angels. Without this feeling, the counter-revolution becomes impossible. And he says, in the counter-revolution, there is an intimate intertwining between angels and men. In the counter-revolution, there is an intimate intertwining between angels and men. I believe that the counter-revolution received an angelic exemplarity in a particular way. What does exemplarity mean? Exemplarity means the capacity to reflect a beautiful model. For example, Saint Teresa of the Infant Jesus had the exemplarity of the purity of Our Lady, the pureness of Our Lady. We receive the counter-revolutionary through a special grace. We have received an angelic exemplarity in a particular way. Placed before the revolutionary world, it disrupts the deepest realities, instilling fear in the adversary and at the same time reviving a series of things that had died. It is the angelic chivalry that mysteriously extends into the counter-revolution, giving it superior angelic strength. You might know, if you don't, please ask some veteran member of the American TFP to tell you the full story. But the American TFP was doing a campaign, I don't remember in which Ivy League campus. This is back in the 1980s or 1970s even. This is an old campaign. It was an Ivy League college, and they were campaigning there. And at a certain point, a professor of history, a lady, who by the way was Jew, she came out, and just by staring at our standards, she said, "These people are to the right of Charlemagne." That is, for her, Charlemagne was the worst of the worst of the worst, the extreme of the extreme right. Well, these people, she said, are to the right of Charlemagne. Now, what does this lady, or she was a professor of history, so he knew the figure of Charlemagne very well, but what did this lady understand of us, of the counter-revolutionary spirit, just by looking at our standards? And another case, much closer to us, we've all seen the impressive, I would call historical picture of Mr. Ritchie confronting a militant of Black Lives Matter, I think in Lansing, Michigan. Look at that picture. That's not Mr. Ritchie. Well, it is, of course. But what caused fear and what caused respect in that leader of the Black Lives Matter movement, who, by the way, was armed, had a gun on his side? What caused him into submissiveness? What caused him to turn back and stop any protest, any action against us? He saw in the member of the TFP this angelic exemplarity. And we have to be, we members of the TFP, we supporters of the TFP, we have to be very conscious of this angelic exemplarity that we have, especially when we go out and confront the revolutionary world. We cannot say, aha, look at me, I'm shining with an angelic light. The angelic light doesn't shine in people who are thinking about the angelic light. The angelic light shines in people who are assumed by their angels. I no longer exist. It's my angel who exists in me. Like St. Paul says, it's no longer Paul, but Christ who lives in Paul. Well, our guardian angel, I would say, Dr. Plinio, lives in us. But we have to be very conscious that we bear this angelic exemplarity, and from this exemplarity comes the impact of our campaigns. Sometimes we are 4, 5, 6, 7 young people confronting a whole liberal campus, and they are afraid of us so much that they begin to holler and heck and insult us. Why? Because they don't want us there. Many things, the counter-revolution, says Dr. Plinio, is a continuation of the angelic chivalry, whose members have a special connection with the angels, with the strength of the angelic archetypes, that is, with the Holy Roman Catholic Apostolic Church. Herein lies the mystery of the counter-revolution. I will not tell you the full story. Maybe when we meet personally, I will. But I once, unwillingly, met a leader of the Colombian guerrilla, urban guerrilla, not the rural ones that fight in the jungle, but the urban ones that fought in the cities. And he was very impressed with a situation, I will not tell you the full story, but in which two members of the TFP, very young, Mr. Francisco Tobon and myself, I was 20, he was 17 or 18, we confronted a whole pack of guerrillas who were armed, and they backed. We marched against them, praying to Dr. Plinio, praying to our angels, and they actually retreated. Some days later, this guerrilla leader, through people, asked that we have a meeting. I said, well, let's have a coffee in a bar. Why not? And he said, I've never seen such a thing in my life. Who are you? Who are you? Of course, I couldn't say I'm Julio Loredo, because that doesn't say anything. So I said, we are the Holy Roman Catholic Church that is making a comeback. He was impressed. He was not impressed by us, where I was 20, Mr. Francisco Tobon was 17 or 18. He was impressed by something he saw beyond us. So this is what Dr. Plinio says. Herein lies the mystery of the counter-revolution. Many things of the counter-revolution, the Cape and the Standard, for example, have an angelic touch. A member of the group, and I would say a supporter of the group, shines with an angelic splendor, especially when he is in campaign. Indeed, when we do a campaign, there's a special light. This explains the angelic lumen of the counter-revolution. As long as the member of the group does not reject this light, it will shine in him. It is a very great grace. And again, I said, how do we permit this light to shine through us? Is by saying, I don't exist anymore. It's this light that shines in me. The light of my guardian angel is the light of Dr. Plinio's spirit. It's the light of Our Lady. We are consecrated as slaves to Our Lady. It's the life of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. So now we will go into the last point of this lecture, of this meeting, is the strategic importance of angels in the counter-revolutionary battle, or in the battle for the counter-revolution. Up to now, I've set the foundations to give a correct answer to this final question, which is indeed the subject of my meeting. One first point is this. The revolution, I'm reading from Dr. Plinio's book, the revolution has a satanic substratum from where it draws its influence on the souls. We will never be able to defeat it simply with doctrinal treatises, with books. This is very important. We have to do books, we have to write books, we have to publish books, because the counter-revolution is not made just of enthusiasm and just slogans and symbols. We have to study the revolution. We have to confute the revolution. We have to make our case rationally. Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira always said, I don't want to come through as a sort of a guru that says, now I'm seeing a light and it's God who is asking me to tell you this. Never. Dr. Plinio always proved every single thing he said in a perfectly rational way. At the end of every meeting, he always said, my sons, do you have any questions? Do you have any doubts? Do you have any objections? And he will very gladly answer. We who have known him for so many years, let's say veteran members of the TFP, we saw that so many times. So we have to battle against revolution with books, with articles, with doctrinal treatises, etc., etc. But that does not suffice. It says, we will never be able to defeat the revolution just with doctrinal treatises, with books. We need an angelic response. And the reason is the one he gave before. Revolution is not simply a doctrine. Revolution is satanic. There is a satanic influence Take, for example, we've all seen the horrific scenes of the destruction brought about by the Black Lives Matter movement. They burned down houses, they destroyed monuments, etc., etc. That doesn't go without a satanic hatred against order, without a satanic hatred against America, a satanic hatred against anything that can be tradition or moral. There is a satanic substratum to revolution, and we have to respond to that with an angelic response. It says, the meditation on the angels, the love for the angels, the devotion to angels will communicate to Catholics a kind of angelic splendor, so resplendent as to put the devil on the run. Excuse me if I repeat some of these phrases, but they are so beautiful and they go so straight to the point. The meditation on the angels, the love for angels, the devotion to the angels will communicate to Catholics a kind of angelic splendor, so resplendent as to put the devil on the run. Either to the satanic influence, we contrast the splendor of angelic innocence, or we will always be overwhelmed. And this is one of the reasons conservatives have been beaten once and again. We have to raise up to the level of understanding that this is a battle that includes the angelic level. It's not exclusively angelical. It's also, and for us, mainly human. But when there is the angelical level, that is the superior level, so in a certain sense, it's the most important one. And this is one of the reasons we conservatives, we traditionalists, we counter-revolutionaries have been overwhelmed time and again. We haven't had recourse to the angels. In another point, which I didn't write here, Dr. Plinio gives a metaphor. Those who have known Dr. Plinio, we know that he was a master of metaphors. And at a certain point, he says, fighting against the revolution without the help of the angels is like fighting against 100 dinosaurs with a rusty sword. Already fighting 100 dinosaurs with a shotgun or with a machine gun or something would be quite difficult. Imagine fighting 100 dinosaurs with a rusty sword. Well, that is us fighting revolution without the angels. I believe that the time has come to talk about the angels, even for another reason, which he will explain in this paragraph. The more the contemporary situation becomes insoluble, mysterious, and terrible, the more I'm convinced that the solution is opening ourselves to the angelic universe. There is a sensation of malaise, to use this word that was put into circulation in the 1970s when the United States were retreating from Vietnam. Then Jimmy Carter was elected and everybody spoke about the American malaise. Well, even today, there is a very widespread malaise. Excuse me, I'm not American, but permit me a strictly political commentary. But just seeing Joe Biden in the Oval Office provokes me a very deep malaise. And I think that that's a malaise that exists in so many people. Well, how do we answer this? How do we counter this? He says, the more the contemporary situation becomes insoluble, mysterious, terrible, the more I'm convinced that the solution is opening ourselves to the angelic universe. We faithful Catholics are increasingly isolated. Either we resort to the angels or I don't see a way out of the situation. If we want to be prepared to face the situation, if we want to communicate strength and enthusiasm to the faithful in the midst of the contemporary crisis, we must study the angels. We must proclaim the angels. We must ask the angels to intervene with men so that they are prepared for the great battles that are approaching. The devil's action is becoming more and more present. Only a recourse to the angels will allow us to face it successfully. So, against Black Lives Matter, we cannot simply oppose articles or books. We have to oppose an angelic model that is the opposite of Black Lives Matter, as Black Lives Matter is a satanic model. I'm not saying that there are devils. I'm saying that there are models for devils. Because as much as there is an exemplarity that takes us upwards towards God, there is an exemplarity that takes us downwards towards hell. And if they have this exemplarity that goes downward towards hell, we have to have the opposite exemplarity that takes us towards heaven through the angels. Then another point. Faced with a world that is crumbling, the apostolate about the angels could be a sort of a bell that tolls in the spirit of contemporary man. The more I think about it, the more I have the impression that by studying and proclaiming the angels, we will be able to find a key to act in the deepest psychological problems of contemporary man. Why are so many young kids committing suicide? Why are so many young kids getting into drugs, getting into pornography, and getting into all sorts of strange and bad things? Because they don't get from life what they expect from life. That is, the modern world doesn't give them what they want. So Dr. Plinio asks himself, couldn't we appeal to many people who are looking for something which they don't find in the modern world by presenting the angelical universe? Of course, we have to present it in a very rational, a very orderly, and very serene way, as I'm doing now, which cannot simply go out in the streets and say, hey, we're the angelic chivalry. That doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We have to present the angelic universe in a perfectly rational, perfectly serene, very calm way. But Dr. Plinio says, isn't this the key to act in the deepest psychological problems of modern man? Isn't this sort of a bell that will toll in the spirit of so many people, waken them up to the angelical universe, waken them up to the fact that there is a universe way above our heads that takes us to God? And isn't this the real path to happiness? Because I don't know if I have this paragraph here, but Dr. Plinio says, people want to be happy. Now, they look for happiness in mundanity. They look for happiness in the modern world. They look for happiness in drugs, in modern music and discotheques and so many stupid things. Why don't we present the angels as the only ones that are capable of giving the real happiness? This is another point. Presenting the doctrine about the angels would be a challenge to the modern world and would attract many people eager to escape from modern chaos. It will be an appeal to take the angels as a reference point to get out of modern chaos, towards a Christian civilization founded on beauty and truth. See, the present so says, do you want to escape from the modern world? Don't go to Satanism or drugs or modern music or discotheques and all sort of weird things like New Age and things like this. Come to the angelic world. Do you want to be happy? Become angelic. So you see here, there's a whole style, a whole key, as Dr. Plinio says, that can give a certain tone, a certain style to all of our apostolate. Not only a specific apostolate about the angels, but, as Dr. Plinio would say somewhere here, all our apostolate has to be done in an angelic way, with an angelic touch. It says, do you want to escape from hell of modern world? Contemplate the angelic world. And we see one proof of this in the dissemination of New Age type of spirituality. So many people are getting into New Age things. So many people are getting into occultism. So many people are getting into Wiccan and all these stupid things. Why? Because they are tired of the modern world and they are looking for something else. Wouldn't many people be saved from getting into New Age and this type of things by presenting them the angelic world? It says, do you want to escape from the hell of the modern world? Contemplate the angelic world. I think this angelic apostolate would be a canticum novum, a new song, a new chant that can wake up contemporary man. We have to wake up contemporary man, and we will not do it simply with books. We have to write books. As I said, I write books. Mr. John Horvath writes so many books, etc., etc. We have to write them. But we have to bear in mind that our apostolate, even when we write books, has to have an angelic touch, an angelic style to it. One last point, and with this I go straight to the end of my lecture. The reign of Mary and angelic era. Well, excuse me, before going into this, I've tried, I didn't even try to summarize this book. I just gave some flashes, some points of this book. I promise you that when this book will be published in English, I will go there and we will discuss this book in much deeper way, and you will see the beauties that this book contains about the angels. I now go straight into the last point, the reign of Mary and angelic era. Dr. Plinio says, the sin of revolution has produced a growing union of men with the devil, without up to now there having been a similar step on the part of the counter-revolution. Here is a reason for its continuous defeats. While with the revolution men have united themselves more and more and more with the devils, the counter-revolution hasn't done the same with the angels. In my opinion, in the perspective of the theology of history, the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, with the official proclamation of the triumph of her Immaculate Heart, have opened a new era for humanity, in the sense that they have given rise to a new type of relationship between men and angels, which will culminate in the promised triumph. I imagine that this action will take place in stages. At the beginning, there will be the generosity of a group of faithful who could form a spiritual family, that's us, and who would then invite everybody to unite with the angels. Thus, the angelic action will have conquered a bridgehead from which the reconquest will then start. In the reign of Mary, the souls will be invited to such a union with the angels. It will be the revenge on the smoke of Satan that has penetrated the church. It will be the expulsion of this smoke and the return of the scent of incense. The church will not emerge from the current crisis without having recourse to the angels. Just as the revolution inaugurated a new type of man-devil relationship, the reign of Mary will inaugurate a new tenor of relations between man and angels. And since Providence allowed the devil to be unleashed in the revolutionary period, I think it reasonable that in the reign of Mary, it will allow the angels to have much more active role in the management of human affairs. The reign of Mary will be a period of exceptional angelic action, a new era in which the action of the angels will be much more extensive than the demonic action is today. In the reign of Mary, Our Lady will allow the angels to come more perceptible to men. The reign of Mary will be the reign of the angels. With this, dear members of the American TFP, dear supporters, ladies and gentlemen, I conclude my lecture, not without making a heartfelt appeal. This is not something to be just listened to. This is not just something to be studied and liked. This is something to be applied. When we go out of the gates of the State and Spring Grove, a state of the good success, Our Lady of the Good Success, we have to become ambassadors of the angels. We have to apply all this that we heard about the apostolate of the angels. One last time, thank you very much, and to all of you, Salve Maria.